Well, hey, boys and girls, and welcome back to Southern Dictionary, episode 17 of CETA, Creating Every Day in April. And I hope you've been enjoying these episodes that I put together. This is number 17. We're over the hump. We are making our way towards home plate. And today is no exception because we're going to be looking at an expression from our Southern Dictionary called, well, actually related to the letter O. The letter O. Now, the letter O, I guess there's several things in the Southern Dictionary, and I picked out two of them for you today. One is on your lonesome. On your lonesome. You see, on your lonesome was I guess a kind of a colloquial way of saying I'm all alone. If someone were to say to you in a sentence, well, he's all by himself, he's on his lonesome, or you're on your lonesome, it means you are alone or by yourself. And I always think about the word alone. I recall the movie Home Alone, where that young man wasn't, well, he was left behind, but he wasn't necessarily alone because of all the thieves that were trying to break into the house, and his ingenuity to kept them at bay. And anyway, it was a movie about being alone, although he wasn't really all that much alone. And then, of course, I can think of a movie several years ago. Matt Damon, I believe, was the star of a movie called Mars. Any of you see that? That was kind of an unusual movie because it was basically a 2-hour movie, and an hour and 50 minutes of it was Matt Damon trying to survive left behind on the planet Mars by his expeditionary forces that were there. They thought he was dead, but he was alive. So he made his way back to home base and spent the rest of his time completely alone. And it wasn't so much the physical activity that took its toll, but the emotional toll of being completely alone in space. I cannot imagine that. To me, that would be the ultimate paradox, or the 180 parallel to claustrophobia, where you're alone. But in this case, he was alone in space. Anyway. And then there was another kind of science fiction space movie. If you remember, it was called Passengers, and it had Jennifer Lawrence and I believe it was Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt was aboard a space cruiser that was carrying bodies that had been cryogenically put to sleep and was traveling to another world. And they knew that it was going to be 90 or 100 years away before they arrived. So the ship was pretty much automated and left on autopilot, with the computers generating its course and its navigational changes. And suddenly the pod that Chris Pratt was traveling in, cryogenically put to sleep, malfunctioned, and he awakened. But he was the only person on the ship, other than a robot that was served as a bartender, and he was very alone. And so he was wandering around the ship, and he noticed there was a young lady that he seemed to be attracted to, and he read a little bit about her biography, and he actually jimmied the device that controlled the pod and had her wake up as well. And of course, he told her that it was the same thing that happened to him. It was an accident. And they proceeded to get to know one another. And anyway, to make a long story short, I don't want to spoil the movie, but it was their relationship of being two humans on a spaceship traveling into space and realizing that their arrival date was going to allow them to be extremely old, if not dead, by the time they arrived. And interesting movie. You ought to see it. I remember as a kid going and seeing Day the Earth Stood Still. You remember that movie? That was an old science fiction movie. And in Day the Earth Stood Still, there was a robot. And I wish I could remember his name. I can't remember it. But anyway, I remember when I left the theater, even though I'd gone in the theater with daylight, when I came out of the theater, it was nighttime. And I was, at the end of seeing this really weird science fiction movie, I was afraid. And I was alone, and I had to run all the way home. It was about 3/4 of a mile to my house, and where I normally would walk that in the dark, I ran home. Of course, this was in probably 1958, 1959, and but I just remember having that feeling of being alone. Well, anyway, that's On Your Lonesome. The other expression I was going to look at today, maybe a little more whimsical, is old lady. Yeah, old lady. And that actually the term old lady has a double meaning. And by that I mean you can have an old lady be representative of your mother. And of course, we all love our mother, right? But we can also use that same term, old lady, and especially if you're a biker, for your wife or your significant other. Your old lady. I have a friend who, he doesn't use the term old lady. He calls his wife his ball and chain. Well, that's another day and another story. But anyway, 2 expressions from the Southern Dictionary. On your lonesome, being all alone, and old lady, either a wife or a mother. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy the episodes. We're kind of, like as I said earlier, going into the final throes of CETA. But tomorrow we'll be looking at the letter P and expressions from the Southern Dictionary that come from and with and may be led off by the letter P. So we hope you'll come back and visit. Go back and look at all the episodes. Don't have a lot of views. Disappointing. But I'm doing this for me. And it's been a great adventure. We'll see you later. Talk to you tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, if you ever come to Alabama, you remember what I've always said. Come see me. Y'all come.